Today I got an interesting one for you. You might even want to say it's a doozy. At least that's what the box says. I mean, it is kind of crushed up. Not sure. The branding's all over the place on this thing. This did come straight from China. I mean, that looks quite obvious, right? Ploylab.com sent this out to me for purpose of review. And I remember doing a video on something very similar in the past, a little tiny mini retro TV, but it had NES games built into it, and that's all you could use it for. But I thought that was kind of neat. Wasn't the most amazing thing ever. But this one here, yeah, it came with these controllers. My God, it came with two of them, and then this power supply. They were like separate. They weren't even in this box. Kind of weird. But there's all this stuff that it comes with. Back on point here. So the TJ800, what is this thing? It's listed as the Sanpao Mini Smart TV. We have a little manual here going over all the specifics of the device. The one thing I want to point out is this system. It is an Android box mini TV, and it is kind of interesting in that you could plug other things into it, actually use it as a TV. So that's one thing to keep in mind here. It's not just an Android box. This is a mini TV for all intents and purposes anyway, because of this little air remote. But the one, like it has an air mouse built into it. The one thing I wanted to point out is that the CPU being used here on this device that I'm pulling out of the box right now, it's kind of in there tight. That's what she said. It's an Amlogic S905W, 4-core at 2 gigahertz, I believe is what it's listed as. And that is a fairly old chipset that's been used in Android TV boxes for ages now, for like many years. So, I mean, it's not going to be the most powerful thing ever. But today, we are going to be taking a look at testing out some games on it and plugging some stuff into it and seeing how it looks and performs. So this thing, it is a 3.5-inch IPS LCD screen at 640 by 480p resolution. I'll have somewhere at some point on the screen, maybe already, all the specs and whatnot. On the back of the thing, you got a couple switches. Can be kind of confusing because depending on how you have them switched, either you're in Android box mode or you're in mode for the HDMI to plug something in. But there's everything on the back of the system. The dials on the front adjust volume and like the contrast, I guess, like it can turn black and white or just boost up the colors. Kind of interesting. But going ahead and testing everything out here, you know, I played a bunch of games, but I also kind of wanted to see the actual Android side of things and, you know, see how things performed there. And with such a small screen, I have a hard time actually using this as an Android box, but, you know, I did kind of get around. You do have, you know, the Google Play Store, all that stuff. Netflix, the one thing I want to point out is I tried getting Netflix to run on this, but it just said that the Netflix that was built into it, or that it shipped with, that it needed to be updated to run. And then when I try to update it, it says it's not compatible with this device. So for whatever reason, I'm not some, like, rocket scientist when it comes to these things. I know a lot of devices Netflix, you know, isn't, you know, allowed to run on type of thing. I can't get Netflix to run on this. Going on Google, trying to like go to YouTube and whatnot, just such a clusterfuck. Trying to use this thing as a little Android, you know, box. Looking at the screen to navigate through websites and things like that, just so tiny. I mean, if you're a miniature person, maybe it's cool for that purpose, but I figured, you know what, screw all that noise. Playing games on this is a more simple thing. Why would I want to navigate websites and look at YouTube on this little thing? Let me play some damn games, right? So I did test out some emulation here, various systems. And with this chipset and how everything's set up, you're going to get mixed results. You know, just like any of these devices with these older chipsets. You know, some systems will run just fine. All your old school stuff, you're really not going to have any issue with, like your 8 and 16-bit games, like NES, Super Nintendo, all that stuff's going to run just fine. Even Game Boy Advance, I found, was running pretty well. I tested, you know, I'm not showing footage of every single game I've tested, but I couldn't find anything for those retro consoles that didn't run for me. So that's one good thing there. Now, once you start jumping up PS1, Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, things can be hit and miss here, but I did notice with PS1, really the performance wasn't bad. I wasn't having any issues. It's not shocking. A lot of these devices can play PS1 just fine. It's when you start jumping into Nintendo 64 emulation and Dreamcast that you can start running into some issues. So with PS1 running fine without issue, moving up the Nintendo 64, it's a similar experience that I've had with a lot of other devices. Some things will run decently well. Some things will have graphics glitches. There's going to be a lot you can do with using different emulators and settings to really find that sweet spot. Like, this should be capable of playing a lot of Nintendo 64 stuff, but keep in mind, you may need to tweak some things around. I mean, that's just the nature of emulation once you start getting into certain systems, and depending upon the system specs on the device that you're emulating on as well. With this, yeah, Nintendo 64, you can get some decent performance, but you may have to mess around a little bit. Dreamcast's a whole other story. Like, I couldn't get anything to really run very well on here. The more demanding games, the 3D fighters and whatnot, just everything was stuttering for me, a little stuttering Stanley action, and that's a no-go for me, dude. Now, if you're going to emulate games on this device, if this was something you actually were interested in, I mean, there's so many better options out there. I'm not going to hype this thing up just because it was sent to me for purpose of review. I think it looks neat, but as far as the actual system being built into it, leaves a lot to be desired. Like, I would personally not buy this for that purpose at all. Like, I could see people being interested in this just because of the aesthetic, but I believe at the price point that they're at, it's like over $100. I don't recall exactly where, but I know it's well over $100. I just don't think it's worth it for that. I said some people may look at the aesthetic and think it's cool, but moving on to like using this as an actual TV, I did plug a couple consoles into it to test things out. So I did plug in my Genesis Mini, and it was pretty cool. I mean, hopefully my video can do the screen justice, because with that little 3.5-inch screen, while running Android and looking at text on the screen wasn't the most appealing thing ever, plugging in a console and just playing games was an okay experience. Worked just fine. But I do have to fall back on a point I forgot to mention. Those two included controllers. This thing did come with two Super Nintendo style controllers, just complete garbage. Like, out of the box, like, yeah, there's two USBs in the back. Like, they wouldn't work for anything. I had a hard time getting them functional. I just don't know if they don't work or they're just crap altogether. I had to use different controllers on this device to, actually be able to play games when I was running it on Android anyway. Obviously, plugging in a console, you're going to use your console's controllers, but just had to fall back on that. But playing the Genesis Mini was pretty cool. The screen does look decent for playing these types of games on it. Then I did also check out playing the retro USB AVS, playing some NES games. It looked good, performed, just fine. I mean, it's running off the system, it's not running off this device. As far as performance go, I mean, like, the latency of this, the way the monitor's interacting with the games and whatnot, I didn't really have any issues there. It seemed to be fine, looked good. But yeah, an overpriced device that I really think should be a lot cheaper than what it's listed as. Just kind of a quirky little thing. Some people might like it. Some people may think it's ridiculous. Me, personally, I think it looks neat, but I would never buy something like this not at over $100. Like, if I saw this in the store for $29.99, hell yeah, I would consider it. I don't mean hell yeah, like I would just, no, I would think about it. I would think about it. What else could I spend my money on? But some people crazy, man. Some people crazy. Me, I'm good. You guys, let me know what you think about this device down below. Not quite a Soulja Boy'd up device, as there are no games built into it. Just an Android box experience. Load your own stuff, figure it out, and go. Appreciate y'all watching. And with that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out. Bye-bye, and boom. Bye.